back. Hope you're having a good day. This is one of the small leaf Ficus Benjamin varieties of some sort. Started from a cutting about 4 years ago, and I'm a little mixed up as to which tree I even got it from. I did have a Ficus Rianne, and then I had another one that was unlabeled, and I'm not sure whether it came from this one or the Rianne tree. A bit of a long story for both, but both those parent trees are now gone, so it's kind of hard to do even any comparison as to whether, which one it looks more like. But about 6 months ago, I repotted it, and that's the last time I've done any updates on it. It's about a 4-year-old cutting. I took it at the same time as the next tree I'm going to bring in. This was a smaller cutting, and so what I did was I've always kept this in a really small pot. And 6 months ago, it was actually just kind of not really looking all that healthy in the pot I had it in that it had taken some hurricane damage, and it kind of like blew out all the substrate except for the really big particles. And so I put it in a little bit of a deeper pot. It's like the same size pot that it was in, but it's like another ½ inch deeper, and it seems to be doing a lot better. At first, when it first started recovering, like in this pot, it grew some really, I don't know, leaves like that big at first. Wasn't really sure what was going on, but what I've done so far is I've just kind of clipped it back a little bit, just in the name of kind of almost leaf reduction a little bit, and just to keep it from getting too tall too quickly. So it has been growing really well, and that's basically what I'm going to do right now. Remember, I am in Florida. My trees do stay outside year-round. It is still really hot now, but it is kind of, you can tell that the trees are getting a little bit less light. Some of them are, this one's actually one of the ones going through a bit of a growing spurt. But I think that's just because, even though it is still really hot, it's like cooled down some comparatively to what it was. Our highs now are like 88 and 89 instead of being like 92, 93. So just a light prune now should give it plenty of time to recover through the winter. Or not really even recover, I don't really mean recover through the winter. I mean, it should recover now and have a good canopy for the winter. And when I have been just cutting it back, just for maintenance purposes, I haven't really been taking a super close look at it, which I am now. Go ahead and get some of these interior branches that I don't want to keep too. Trying to get nearly all the April growing tips while being careful to leave some foliage. And I think that'll about do it for that guy. I'm going to go ahead and get the larger cutting that I took at the same time. Alright, and then here's that other cutting. You can see the size difference. When I did take these cuttings like 4 years ago, this one was just slightly bigger than the other one. But I always had this in a much bigger pot. At one point, I even tried to put it into I tried to make it into a root over rock. I say a pot, like a good sized pot that I had it in with, again, a good sized rock. And it just really was turning out kind of hideous. It had just these huge bulbous roots all wrapped around it. And about 2 years ago, I guess it was, I think it was May of 21, I went ahead and pruned those roots off and got it in this little bag pot here. I don't know how long I'm going to leave it in this pot. It's going to be a bear to repot one day, but I'll leave it in there for a bit. I'm going to get it trimmed up pretty good today. After that, I'll show you it's got a chop scar here. That's the chop scar from the next cutting I'm going to bring in. And then down here is the wedge cut that I made a while back. We'll take a look at that. But first, I'm going to go ahead and clip it back a little bit. After I get it clipped back, I may decide to get a little bit of wire on it for the winter. And I may not. One of the things one of the flaws that I've been looking at is this lower branch, actually, being that this lower branch, and it's longer than the other ones and is skinnier, looks kind of out of place, but I did keep it because it was right above that big chop mark there. That is what I'm picturing being the future front one day. It's hard to picture it because I've got it in this bag pot that kind of goes like where you'd be looking at it from this way or from this way. Alright, so when I started, I pretty much knew I wasn't going to wire the lower branches. As they've got plenty of scarring on there, I'd kind of like to let them grow out. I really did intend to perhaps maybe wire some of the secondary branches up here. Kind of cut back a little more than I thought I would. I noticed that in this type of tree right here, in the last 3 or 4 branches up, if you let them grow too much, they'll start becoming their own little apex. And so I had to kind of calm some of that stuff down. And then of course I did another chop there. Chop just kind of up in the apex because it does push so much growth up that way. Trying to hold on to a little bit of a taper, and again, not wanting to let it get too tall for the size of the tree I want. This chop here is actually going to be the next tree that I bring in. It's the youngest cutting that I have. And then this little scar down here is where I did that wedge cut. Overall, I'm pretty happy. Almost all the way sealed up. I think another season or so, it'll be all the way sealed up. You'll probably always see this little bulge on the edges there. If I could go back and do things again, I would have used a pot that had a much better chance to have a guy wire on it. This was just so hard to do that with. I didn't realize that it had too much spring to it to really wire. If you go back and watch those old videos, you'll see what I'm talking about. I did a little saw cut and kind of bent it over there a little bit because it was so straight. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a nice looking tree. All right, and then this is the last one. One that from that bigger cutting. That is the chop scar that's on there. Maybe overall working out to be the best one. It's getting a little bit of an interesting nabari. Definitely not traditional looking by any means, but interesting. If you go back to that last video, you'll remember, or maybe if you have been a long-term subscriber, you'll remember that this one actually got stepped on by the contractors. The other one actually got knocked out. This one got stepped on. But just like the other two, I guess I'm going to go ahead and just give this guy a good cut back. I think I already said it in the other videos, with these Benjamina varieties, it's always a good idea to try to leave a little bit of foliage behind. That's why I don't chop and defoliate on these guys. These two branches here, I've always kind of known one of them's going to have to come out. And since this branch is on the same side as this one, and then this one's up here. I'm going to go ahead and take that one off. Kind of don't like the fact that it's got that much of a bare spot there, but it does have a little movement in the trunk there anyway, so at least it does have some interest. Then I'm going to go ahead, you notice, trunk line's kind of falling up that way. The main trunk now kind of looks like it was trying to go this way with another kind of a sub-apex there. This one's actually thicker. I'm going to go ahead and take the thicker one off. And then make sure I prune all these growing tips off here. All right, and we'll be giving all 3 of these another check-in next spring. See what they look like.